Just walk down the street with a pitcher of margarita. I saw that.
No, you can walk down the streets like in the French Quarter with a cup. And that's
With
completely different.
But they're closed containers.
Well, that's true.
Well, some of the cups are as big as pictures.
Exactly. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, everybody, to our first in-person meeting of the year. I am always excited to see everybody in person, to see everybody's faces. And also, when we are in person, we have delicious food, so thank you to Tracy and team for food. As always, we will start with the mission, so does everybody have their, okay. So the mission of Paul is to educate our students, to develop in them the capacity to be responsible citizens, independent thinkers, and leaders. Manya shared the minutes from last meeting, and they are in your board book. In looking at them, if you were able to look at them prior to the meeting today, does anybody have any changes that are needed to the August minutes? Okay, seeing that, I am going to ask for a motion from the floor to approve the meeting minutes from August as they are entered in our board book. So moved. Thank you, Erin. Megan, can I get somebody to second that motion? Thank you, Dr. Malachi. And I am going to call the people in, Manya, is anybody?
Nobody's
virtual. Okay, these are virtual. Okay, so I will call the people present in the room. Ms. Wood?
What's it?
Yep, vote for,
Yes.
yes, thank you. Sally. Shabir. Oh, you weren't saying that's true. Erin?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sterling. And thank you. So it has been unanimously, first, second, and unanimously voted on, so the meetings are into meeting minutes from August are entered into the record.
We're trying to figure out the slide.
The slides. Okay, so I was gonna say, and I'm yielding the floor, let Dr. White, and yield the floor to Dr. White so she can do her report.
Yep. Thank you. We were trying to figure out the slides really quickly to see if I can just show them up here. Awesome. So, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our first in-person meeting of the year. It's not our first meeting, but our first in-person meeting of the year. The school year has gotten off to a really good start. We have a really great team. We've always had a really great team, but have spent the summer doing a lot of work, and it feels like we're moving with a different level of intentionality. You know, being rooted in our Vision 2035, very quickly making sure that our work is aligning to the things that are in that vision 10 years off. Erin, we have a date that's coming up, you don't know this yet, in October. So we can actually start to build out even more of the programmatic pieces that our students are really hungry for right now. That help them to kind of lean into that notion of what it means, not just to be a responsible citizen, but to be a citizen of the world. Our children are very interested in what's going on right now, don't necessarily know how to contextualize everything. So we realize that we've got to start to also build out experiences to help them know what to do with all of what they're feeling these days. So that said, it's good to know that even though the world feels really topsy-turvy right now, it doesn't feel topsy-turvy in here. And so that just is a testament, not just to our students and our families, but also to the adults in the building. So there are two big pieces that I want to share with you all for reporting. Today, we're going to do part 2 of our accountability metrics review. We already went through our CAPE data back in August. Excuse me. We also talked about some attendance data, but we'll look at that again. You will recall that each September, we kind of do a deeper data dive that lifts up some of the metrics that don't necessarily fall in our accountability framework, or that were still kind of being processed through when we met back in August, okay? But before we talk about that, I have to share with you all that change is coming. I can't remember what day it was. I texted you, Kim, but about a week or so ago, on a random Tuesday, got an email from Honesty that was like, surprise, this is the last year that we're taking the CAPE exam. Whatever.
I want to ask a question. So 2020, last year was the first year that it, like, the scores counted because the first year was like was like a baseline
Right,
test.
Right, and they were getting together like NGP, growth data and all that other kind of stuff. And so we, with our Aspire framework, the Aspire framework, this was the first year it was supposed to go public, but not necessarily have your scores on there, but the data would be public, but they would not necessarily say that you were a level 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5. There are actually 5 levels. Well, we get this email way out of the blue. There was no conversation or dialogue about this. It didn't even come from the state superintendent, it came from somebody in the data department. And we're like, dude, WTH, is going on? What do you mean, like, this is the last year? They just passed a whole accountability framework based on this assessment. And as anyone knows, when you push the reset button on assessments, it's minimally 2 years until you can, put that data in a framework, because you have to score it, you have to have growth data, the whole nine. So we had a meeting last week with the state superintendent and it was very tough. And to be honest with you, there were no answers. They rushed through it to get to a conversation about model cell phone policies. Even though, I know, literally it was like 7 minutes and it was, I know.
This is a question from like safety reasons or something, or just?
No, like I don't, it was like, we're not gonna talk about this kind of. I put in the chat, can we please not rush through this? Like, you just sent us an email. That means it's public. People are going to have questions. We have 0 answers. And what we did learn was that the PCSB was not necessarily informed much before us either. So
Where did this decision come from?
I have no idea. I mean, I would think that the runway to make a shift on a state's high stake assessment, I would think that runway was at least 2 years. They said that they got feedback from people. I'm like, who were the people? Right. What were the processes? Nobody even knew that this was working. I'm imagining that the contract is multi-million dollars over several years, so it has to go through a bid process. Our state is already on the Smarter Balance Consortium's website. So it feels like maybe these wheels were in motion for quite some time, but no one told us. So we have a meeting coming up next week on Tuesday because we've asked to have a longer meeting where we can ask questions. This means a full-on revision of our curriculum. It means fully revising our interim assessment system, which we have used now for almost 8 years and have it for 8 grade levels. Yeah.
So is there an assessment replacing the CAPE?
So the new assessment is from the Smarter Balance Consortium. And the good news is that they do have like interim assessments that we can purchase. And we were told that we'll be able to use those resources free for 1 year. But how much do they cost? Because the out years for the budget ain't looking pretty. So we're making this shift when the council has already said that we should not expect an increase in our per pupil funding allocation, and that we should not expect anything in terms of our facilities funding. But we now are going to need to make a pretty significant investment, not just in human capital, but in financial capital to shift all of our learning, to make sure it aligns with the assessment. Because you do need to teach to your tempest, because there are a ton of standards. And while you need to cover as many of the standards as possible, it's no different from if you plan on going to law school at the end of your 4 years of college, then you're going to do courses that prepare you for that assessment so you can gain entry. It's no different with our students. But that means, because we are literally changing to a whole new assessment system, that we are going to have to work this year to ensure our students do well this year. But we also, we've already had one emergency meeting. We're having a series of meetings to start to build out a timeline for how we're going to revise our curriculum to be ready for the first day of school in 26.
I'm sorry, I understand that this may not be relevant for Paul because of how diligent you are with Paul finances. But from a district-wide perspective,
Man,
for LEAs that are financially strapped and challenged, what harm does this potentially pose to district children for schools that can't afford, because they haven't budgeted, to completely rework a curriculum
yeah.
to align with a new test when they thought that they just did that for the last one?
And I mean, it could be devastating, like there are tons of questions, like schools that, you know, just got through their review process, but they have conditions. And like, I'm thinking of one school in particular, they had, you know, a tremendous number of conditions, really high stakes conditions, and they did well this past year. But now, you know, the executive director's like, kind of feels like the rug's being pulled from under us because we have one more year with Kate, and then we're trying to figure out how we're gonna get ready for the Smarter Balance, you know, assessment.
That sounds like sabotage. It sounds so intentional to me.
Yeah, it
Like,
does.
It's meant to just turn everything on its head. It's meant to make sure there is no success here.
Yeah, I don't know, I have no idea where this is going to be quite
I
honest.
feel like, but
Yeah.
I don't. Also, how different are the two? Have you seen?
So we are, after next week, hopefully we can get access to some like sample materials, like I know a good amount about the Smarter Balance Assessment Consortium, because when the Common Core standards were first passed back in like 2015, there were two big assessment giants out there that states were opting into. And it was either the Park Assessment or it was Smarter Balance. And at the time, I was doing some professional development in different places across the country, and I would always use items from Smarter Balance, which were very, very literacy heavy, like even their math. The math portion of their assessment was very literacy heavy, like, you know, those days of you being able to do math problems because, you know, you were good with numbers, but maybe not so much good with words. You know, we saw Park, you know, really challenge kids with that, but I would say that Smarter Balance, from what I had seen in the past, looked to be a bit more challenging. Once they really, you know, open up the portal so that we can at least start to see stuff, we'll be able to tell. They have said that they're going to have a couple of pilots for schools this year. So we're also watching very closely to see who gets picked for those pilots. Because of course, people want to get picked for pilots so that you can have access to, so you know how to prepare your kids. So we'll see. The other thing really quickly, I will say.
Did Maryland or Virginia get similar? I'm just because home rule was
Virginia,
on the
you know,
table.
Virginia is standards
Is a
of learning,
compromise.
they do their own thing. They never conformed in any of this, like they were like, whatever, we're good. Maryland came away from Park, however, they do still use some Park items. But, you know, we'll have to look to states like California, I think Ohio. California is like their biggest state, that does Smarter Balance. So there are there's a good number of states out there. It's just, I think the thing that concerns me, I'm not concerned, you know, thankfully so much about financial investment. I'm more concerned about the time for staff and employees and expertise to go through and realign curriculum. They don't have to rewrite all of it, but they have to realign it. But the part where they do have to rewrite are assessments. And then we need to go through now a couple of years of that, collecting that data to see how it aligns and lines up with what our kids are actually doing on the assessment. And we have done all of that and have been in this flow, and now we have to do it all again. And this is the last piece that I'll say, it's really important to know, we're coming up on our 30-year renewal, not a review. We just finished 25 review. Renewal is different from review. Review, if you're struggling, you can get the review with some conditions. They don't typically do conditions for renewal. And it's not that I'm worried about that, but that's a lot of transition in this little 5-year bucket of time leading up to such a high stakes moment with the PCSB.
When kids are still in recovery.
Correct.
Exactly. They just got.
And the
through
world
COVID.
is going
These
nuts.
very kids are gonna have to readjust, are the ones who will be tested. If they're the ones who just got through COVID,
Yeah,
the most profoundly affected due to COVID, will be the ones who you'll have to reassess in this new system.
that's right. So we don't know what it means for our Aspire framework and those types of things as of yet, like we'll find that out soon, but yes, stay posted, we'll let you know.
Wow.
So this notion of teaching to the test, how is that contributing to that notion with the switch or not? Compared to Virginia and other places who just don't use these assessments.
Well, no, Virginia they use assessment, they just use their own, they use their assessments based on their standards of learning. So everybody has an end of course or end of grade kind of assessment. Maryland also uses like end of course assessments, everyone has assessments. It's just that, you know, we, in our state, ours was Park, then Cape, which was the same thing. And now it changes to Smarter Balance.
The example that you use about smart balance has more literacy component, particularly to the math. Those are some elements that, again, counterbalancing teaching to the test. You don't need to change anything about literacy. but
No,
You just need to incorporate it more into the math and the other parts that.
yeah, and give the
So
children
it's
more.
more tweak as opposed to steering your curriculum to this particular instrument that's being used to assess.
Well, I would say not for our curriculum, that's correct, like it is gonna be realigning. Like there were certain units that happen at certain times of the year to give students multiple times to master kind of those heavy standards that were assessed on CAPE. Let's say Smarter Balance, let's say there are 3 standards that are heavily assessed for 10th grade ELA on CAPE. And so we've been strategic about making sure that those standards show up multiple times throughout the curriculum. Well, let's say Smarter Balance does not weight that standard heavily, right? Let's say that maybe instead of like 10 items on CAPE, on Smarter Balance, there are only 2. And so now we need to like think about how often this standard in particular comes up in the curriculum, because there may be another standard that has a greater amount of emphasis and focus. And so it's not that we have to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but as you can imagine, and there are a ton of standards, I don't know how many, oh, they're well over 50. There are a ton of standards for ELA, a ton of standards for math. And so figuring out like what makes sense. And then the part that is going to require redevelopment are our assessments. And so those are our formative assessments and our interim assessments. And that is a pretty significant lift.
And it's the opportunity cost, right? Because
Yeah.
that means you're doing all of that instead of moving forward.
Yeah,
I mean, essentially, you're
Yeah.
redoing instead of
we're
doing.
building a plane while we're flying it. And what I will tell you, and we've already had these conversations, is just from I'm just not comfortable going into the year with a plan to build while we're in the year. So like, we gotta figure this out before we get there. You know, sometimes it's like, okay, as long as we get Q1 done, and then while Q1 is happening, we'll start like, we can't do that.
You can't do that with an end of the year test.
No.
Because you don't know what you should be emphasizing Q1 if you haven't planned it all the way out.
That's
So
right.
Especially when the end of the year test doesn't come at the end of the year.
Correct,
Right.
that part. So there's a good amount of work, there's a good amount of lift, I would say, you know,
And this is,
grateful.
sorry, this is done. This is like definite.
Oh, it's done. That's the other part.
Out after that.
Yeah, like there was no open comment period or nothing. Like we're now like asking, well, can we delay it a year? And because you have to remember, that means that that this contract had to be terminated with our current assessment provider.
Before you were ever even notified.
Right.
And who made that decision?
That's
why?
great question.
Money.
Who did that?
Something,
Something happened.
I
There's
don't
a
know.
scandal in there somewhere.
I don't know.
Is it a home rule thing? Like, in my head, everything has an angle.
Right, sure, sure, sure.
Exactly.
Somebody's
No.
benefiting. Who knew who?
I don't know.
What nepotism was?
But-
That's
Slap
the
man.
biggest thing that's a concern with me, and this has always been like my issue, when things get in the way of actually assessing student knowledge. Like,
Yeah.
so if it's like literacy heavy for math, and someone is struggling in literacy, but they're good at math.
Yeah.
Like, now you put a barrier in front of them to be able to show what it is that they can do, because they can't, like we already know, like,
Yeah.
that they're struggling in literacy. And so now you are creating like this situation where, like, it's not even like really showing like what they're
There's some
fully
sort of
capable
testing
of.
along.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then what does that do to the student?
if I know I'm great at math, I have something to shine for.
Yeah.
Sure. You've now just taken that away from me.
That's right.
So now what?
Yeah.
What do I have to look for?
I used to find an answer questions like this all the time. It's like, that's not a math question. You ask them to find 3 t-shirts. Like, what if they don't know the word t-shirt? It's
That's
like,
right.
you're not focusing on a number, you're focusing on the word.
So we're gonna get into it. We're gonna start to build out, like I said, we're starting to build out our timeline for revision work. We'll launch revision work in January. It will have a financial impact this year. We'll find out more. We've asked questions like, who's our rep? Like, give me their phone number. Let me start talking to them now so that I can think about how much this will cost. What things can I purchase now? In a budget year that is not tight. I'm not professing tightness over next budget year, but I also know what, the position that the council has already said the city is in. We all know that. So we're working on it. We'll have a plan for it, but that's really important for you all to know to contextualize our data because in the moment, it all is getting ready to shift.
And which council member is over education? Has there been one, sorry?
It's Mendelson, Phil Mendelson.
Oh, so he probably kept it under him.
Yeah. Yeah. So, with that, I know, interesting. Want to go over a couple of additional accountability metrics from last year. Starting with attendance and re-enrollment. Numbers that you see in purple are in purple because OSSI is still going through the process of validating those numbers, and what we anticipate is that these numbers will increase some once OSSI finishes the validation process. And so what you'll see is our in-seat attendance rate from last year for our middle school to this year. We had a pretty significant jump in our in-seat attendance rate. We are still striving really, really hard on attendance this year. We also saw a pretty good decrease in terms of our chronic absenteeism last year to this year. And again, we have some pretty strong aggressive goals to continue to reduce chronic absenteeism and just absenteeism overall for our students. Our re-enrollment rate as it stands is roughly 86.9%. Those are for our students who re-enrolled for last school year. Remember, this is a lagging metric. And we anticipate that going up a little bit once we get the numbers scrubbed from OSSI. For our high school, we saw a slight increase in our in-seat attendance rate and a very nominal and slight decrease in chronic absenteeism. And it's nominal and as that chronic absenteeism decrease is, we fought for that with every fiber of our being. In the spring, we launched a new attendance initiative that really, we were not seeing our chronic absenteeism, we were seeing our chronic absenteeism in the high school going the wrong direction. We still have a lot of work to do with our families on understanding the importance of kids getting to school on time, heavy emphasis on time and every single day. It's hard sometimes for families to remember that when kids miss a day of school, they don't necessarily have the cognitive schema to know how to come in and pick up what they missed. And while we want to ask teachers to bring them up to speed, we have to remember that's a huge task. They still have to teach the other 103 kids who were not absent the day before. So figuring out how to pull in the 7 who were is hard because the train never stops moving. So we've had a good, strong start to attendance this year, but it's a metric that we will remain highly concerned about and watch very closely all year long. We're investing a lot of money this year in incentives for attendance. I mean, a lot. Because, whatever it is that we can do to really encourage our kids to come, awarding them scholar dollars, and we're in the process of rolling this out. But I'm like, let's get us a school store, put eyelashes in it, pimple patches, phone cords, you know what I mean? Things that kids want to buy.
That's real. Daughter
It is.
became disincentivized by the scholar dollars. She's like, I've just been collecting these. And I can't, the store's never open.
No.
There's never anything in there. So
Any of the stuff that's in there, I'm like, the kids okay, how many bags of chips can one eat? I mean, I know they can eat a lot of them.
Hey, I
Give
have
them
a
little
question.
brushes for their edges.
Right.
All of that stuff.
That's a weapon. Extra program should be a way.
Oh, that is, yes.
This is what-
Well, no, we can sell it outside and they have to take it home. Hopefully, you're right, but we'll have to get something else for
I'm
that.
sorry.
But even if you have the edge control gel, it's expensive, you know? And if we put that stuff in the store for the kids, things like that they want,
Like body spray.
yes.
Deodorant.
Yeah, well, we got merch. Yeah.
I know it
merch
means
as
that
well.
the teachers can give it to them.
Yeah.
Here's the, what's the connection with extracurricular activities? And it's really a two-part question. One is, are the kids engaged in extracurricular activities and is attendance tied to that? And I'll just give you, before you answer, the reason I'm asking that is because the only reason that our oldest son went to school is because if he wasn't there, he couldn't play soccer.
Yeah.
And so it's like, that's the only reason he graduated from
It
high
is
school.
tied to that for sports, most definitely in extracurricular. We've also tied attendance to being able to go on field trips, all of the senior activities, because that was a sticking point last year, our seniors coming and making sure that they were here consistently, so we've tied attendance, and we tied 95% attendance rate. So we are shooting high for our kids.
And is that working?
I mean, we've had a good solid start. What's also working is like the regular communication with the kids. Pitting classes against one another, for who can have the highest attendance rate. Those things have been helping, but we still have too large of a handful of students. I would say that tardies is an issue. Sometimes, when Ms. Reagan went through, tardy hall and read all of the kids' reflections this morning. And, their reflections are, I'm doing the best that I can. Like, I left my house an hour early and, got on the bus, blah, blah, and I'm still here late. And so what we realize is that there's some additional support that we need to give them in terms of planning and preparing, but then also supporting their families to know what they need to do to make sure that the kids get here on time.
I have it's like I'm doing drop off in the morning and I like, every now and then what I don't see is like a safe passage officer, what is at the bottom of the hill right here as you cross onto Missouri, and I'm only asking because every now and then I will see kids come, stop at the bottom of the hill and meet up as a group.
Yeah.
And then go the opposite direction, but I also don't see like a safe passage officer or any of the teachers at the bottom.
Yeah.
And there was one morning where I was thinking that, I was like, these little girls have run all the way around the block, cause I just like saw them like 5 times. I was like, they are clearly trying to run away.
Yeah.
Like for something we see like that, like.
It's not hard to find school when you have now circled it.
No, cause I was just sitting there, like my kid walks slower than molasses, so I was just sitting there and then I had entertainment cause I was looking at the lunch bunch running around. So like, for stuff like that, I was like, there's nobody from the angle that the teachers who are in front of the school are sitting, they wouldn't have been able to see them because of the line of the trees. It's like right as you get to the edge of the campus. So it's like, are there visuals that you can put in place so the kids don't feel like as they drop the little scooty bikes off or as they're pulling up that they can coalesce and then escape together
Yeah.
the opposite direction to the Walmart or like back to McDonald's.
So every now and then we have staff who will go and do a round because we don't have safe passage officers or crossing guards or anything like that. And then security is working we have multiple security points. And now we also have the cell phone tent that we have to staff in the morning as well. And so some of the people who would do the circles are now on cell phone duty because the kids have to lock all of their stuff in the lockbox that's outside. And so we still do have a rotation of someone who will every now and then get off shift, like every 10 minutes and do a quick circle to make sure, and we'll go all the way up to Georgia to make sure that the kids are not absconding, to get a frappuccino and then taking their time to drink it and then coming to school, right? Yeah,
How is that cell phone tent working out?
it is working. It is working. The kids are so resourceful, so they are all turning them in and you can't come into school. We have no technology violations, right? Because we're going straight to confiscation. If we see it, we're confiscating it. Somebody has to come here and get it. But they all have to turn them in their individual lockers on the side of the building in the morning, in addition to their earbuds. First week of school, the kids are so smart. They bought, some of them smuggled in wired headsets and plugged them into their computer, because the kids have their laptops all day. So that was a quick moment where we had to get on them for, you know, the wired headphones, but that was brief. It is so lovely. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's so lovely. And that will actually be a physical structure, like we're building a garage over there that will have heat and whatnot. Be able temperature controlled, but the lockers are already in and each kid has their own individual locker with their own unique lock code.
I bet those, the backpacks help too, clear
The
bags.
clear backpacks help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My daughter has so much neater, her bag.
Yeah, because you don't want to
She
like.
just stuffed the papers in there.
That
And
didn't
now
live
you can
there.
clearly see, all there is a binder and her computer.
Yeah.
Cause I
Before,
was
it was just, I didn't even know what that trash, she probably, I think she had fruit in there. A long time ago.
Well, she couldn't see it. It was too dark in there.
So I remember when I was in high school, we went to like the mesh book bags. It wasn't the clear, your book, it had to be either clear or mesh. Nobody wanted clear book bag back then, so everybody had like mesh. And it really cracked down on the stuff that you brought into school because
That's
you
right.
could see it. So you couldn't smuggle anything in it because it was, so I wonder why that kind of like went away for a while and it's like coming back
Oh,
now.
we brought it all the way back. So
Yeah.
just so that you all know, we bought clear backpacks for everyone. We also bought black shoes for everyone, because that was a whole situation.
What?
Black shoes, not for everyone, but for a lot of
Kids.
children. Yeah, because their families did not do the all black shoes. There was some miscommunication. We were like, listen,
So
well,
I would say like that, at the beginning of the year, we thought like they had to be 100% black.
Right,
yeah.
Which was a little different because before you could have some color, so like we bought shoes already
Yeah.
that we had to return in.
Some parents referenced our old family manual and it was
Yeah.
fine. I was like, we're not gonna fight with them now. These shoes are coming from Walmart, not sure they're gonna wanna wear them. But we're gonna get you
Yeah,
some
black
shoes. And when the dean of students went to go pick them up, he said, good lord, these are ugly.
You don't wear the right shoes then.
But your shoes are black and they were free, so we're good.
Guess that means you will find black shoes.
That's right. That's right. We're not getting J's, no black J's or Air Force Ones. We're getting these black Walmart shoes.
Black shoes.
Yes, ma'am.
Like kind of circling back to, like the attendance and, like the kids who are expressing that like they're leaving like an hour earlier and like getting here. Is there like any way like that, like the city, because I know like particularly like when there were like citywide schools like in Baltimore, there was a partnership between like the school district and like the public transit. And there were special buses that were school buses
Yeah.
that didn't
We
make
used
all
to
of
do
the
that.
stops.
They used to do that in DC. I'm not so sure. That's a great ask, and I'll ask Maya to remind me to follow up about that. I'm not sure, but I think that right now we're in kind of geo tracking to figure out like where the students are coming from. What I will tell you is that when DC had those buses, they were only running between stops that were more for the neighborhood children. So if we have kids who are coming from Ward 7 and 8, they're not gonna have a special bus for them to come all the way uptown. Those buses typically ran within their communities to drop off because it was a partnership between the public schools and charter schools
But
and the
even
transport.
if that's an axe and you expand it, like, and use Baltimore as an example, because like you have like the schools that are like in Northwest or Northeast, East Baltimore, kids are coming from all over the city, and there would be like one bus, like, because like when I was in high school, if I missed that one bus, then I had to go all the way downtown to come all the way back up. But like this one bus, the only stops that they made is like to pick up people within that radius that they knew. And then we got on the highway and they dropped us like straight off. And then
Ask
after
about
school,
that.
there was like special buses that took us to our part of the city. And even if we had to transfer to someplace else, it still took you a good like amount of the way where you didn't have to cross the entire city.
Yeah, I'll definitely go inquire about that. Like I said, we did used to have like the special bus service like that. We never had that at all. But I know when I worked down, down in Southeast, in the Southeast area, we definitely had that.
Like, cause even if they're coming from 7 or 8 and you can get them halfway here
Yeah.
without them, like with one bus and then they have to take like one more, that's like.
Or even get to the metro so they can come.
That's
Yeah.
But first, we're looking to see who guys have the biggest issue. So I'm not sure it might be our kids in 7 and 8, it might not be our kids in 7 and 8.
But Paul is early. I mean,
Yeah.
it's early. We get here at 7:45, but I live right there, so we leave at 7:40.
Yeah.
I can't imagine if I had to come across the city.
Yeah, It's hard, it's tough.
I'm gonna
Catch
be,
a bus across.
I'm gonna be honest, as a parent of a kid who was here, we live 15 minutes down the street and she'll be like, oh, mom, I was late because of the bus. You live
Right.
15 minutes down the street. You take one bus up the
Right.
street. So I know it is used
3
as
stops.
an excuse.
Yeah,
Even if the bus is a little bit late, you still should be late to school.
that's right, that's right. So additional metrics, our ninth grade on track, really proud of that metric. You can see back in 22-23, we were struggling, that was some more of our ripples and reverberations from, coming back from COVID, but we've seen a steady increase in that number year over year. Our 4-year ACGR rate, when I tell you, fought tooth and nail to get to, that 92.9 this year. This was one of our smallest graduating classes. And this was actually our ninth grade class coming back from COVID. And then our 5-year ACGR, these are students who should have, our graduating class of 2024. These were additional students, who graduated this past year. So that rate is up to 95.9%, and our college acceptance continues to be 100%.
What's ACGR?
Adjusted cohort graduation rate, so basically when your ninth grade class comes in, so let's say our ninth graders this year, let's say we have 110. Well, what happens is that your graduation rate is going to be based on those 110 students minus those who have left your school and went somewhere and there's proof of them re-enrolling. So let's say of those 110 students, let's say 10 of them leave and they re-enroll somewhere and there's proof either in the system because they re-enrolled in DC or we've uploaded paperwork because they re-enrolled out of state, but we received that paperwork.
Okay.
Those kids come out of that adjusted cohort graduation rate. But, so those 10 come out, so there's 100 left. Well, let's say that there are 5 who leave, but you don't have any evidence of them re-enrolling in a diploma granting school. Then what happens when they do your graduation rate, you still get charged for those 5 students.
Even if
So-
they left us at the end of freshman year.
Even if they left at the end of freshman year, because you're being charged for them, because if we don't have a record of them, then we're counting them as dropouts. Yeah. So we're way better with this system, that took a lot of work over the last couple of years, but we now have a team that was like the dog, the bounty hunter, they will hunt you down when you leave to make sure that they have the data to support where you've gone and to make sure that you land someplace else.
And those are, just to say on that slide, there were two, really some significant improvements, the ninth grade on track rate and that one. I mean, those are, if you look back at 22-23, just want to pause for a moment and recognize, because we were struggling
Yeah.
with that. I mean, that was hard.
Yeah, that's coming out of COVID. Yep.
Yeah.
Our PSAT and SAT performance, so we have a new metric for PSAT, which is up from, used to be 850 was the metric that we were rated on. Now the metric is 970. This past year, we saw 12.16% of our 11th graders get a 970. So we have a lot of work to do with them now as seniors on the SAT. We've reconfigured our global citizenship class, which is where our kids get their SAT prep, and have put an ELA and math teacher in there to help the kids with that assessment. Cracking that code has been a bit tough, but we're gonna continue to push hard on it. Saw some good growth with our last year's seniors in terms of their SAT, ACT performance. So there was an uptick there. Our AP and dual enrollment CTE, what's important to note about that is that the metric has changed. This 59.2% only represents the number of 12th grade students that took an AP course and passed the test, took a dual enrollment course and passed that, or took a CTE. It is not the full universe. We used to get credit for the full universe of students. That's why in 22-23, you see 164%. Now we only get credit for our seniors.
Is it just, what they do during their senior year, or is it what they did at any time during their
At
whole
any
career?
point in time, yep, during their time here at Paul. And what I will say is that this last year was probably our smallest senior class. And so that metric was, based on a very small number of students, that remained from our ninth grade cohort that we took in our first year after COVID.
Sorry, I don't wanna get into school performance committee, this stuff, so if this is too much in the weeds, but with the SAT, ACT, do you notice that the kids do significantly better on one or the other? Is there a
Our kids
preferred
always do
test?
better on ACT, yeah,
Do we push the kids more towards
We
that?
do.
Yeah,
yeah.
thanks.
Cause they can take either.
Well, no, so we get SAT for free, like our SAT day is coming up in October, but we will pay for ACT. But the SAT, for that participation piece, all the kids have to take it. But then afterwards, you know, we try to do some work with our students to convince them to then take the ACT. Historically, the kids do better on the ACT. Research supports that students of color in particular do better on the ACT. So we prefer them to take the ACT.
Yeah, that's what I was asking, and we do provide them the opportunity, but they have to pay.
No, we will pay.
We pay for
Yeah.
it, so it's still free for them either way, but do they have to come like on a Saturday or something? It's
They
not like
do.
one of these things where the whole class is taken in like that.
That's right, that's right, like that, we shut down, like, not shut down, but like everyone
Everyone's
is
doing
taking
it.
the SAT.
And there's no opportunity to do that for the ACT,
We
because it's
don't.
only Saturdays.
That's right,
Okay, thanks.
that's right. Additional goals, there's something missing here. Maybe it's here, no. Am I missing a slide? Maybe, there's another slide here about, there was a slide about,
Two additional goals for strategic plan, that's what you look for?
there was one that also showed the number of students, or maybe it's on this next one, okay. Yes, it is, it's right here, sorry, that was me. Additional goals, so there are some additional goals that have nothing to do with any of our, they don't have anything to do with our, what do you call it, our Aspire or our, report card framework that we track, because it does have something to do with our end goal of getting our students to, you know, to college and career. And so, for example, by 2025, 70% of our eighth grade students will earn at least one high school credit in algebra, Spanish, art, or biology. We can no longer award the credit in art, but we did have 65.2% of our students earn either a credit in algebra, Spanish, or bio. That's important because that sets our kids up to be able to take the early college coursework. By June 2025, 65% of our 12th graders will have enrolled in at least one AP and or dual enrollment course at some point in time. So we did have a higher percent of our students who enrolled, and we also had a higher percentage of our students who successfully earned a 3 or higher on the AP test. Okay, and then the last piece is that 75% of our 12th grade students who enroll in dual enrollment courses will have earned a college credit course. And so you'll see this year we had double the number of our students enroll in dual enrollment. Dual enrollment is not the same as ATC. So dual enrollment is, it's like it's offered through OSCE, and those are with universities. And so last year we had 36 of our students as opposed to the year before we had 18. So we doubled that enrollment, and they can take classes in the fall, the spring, and the summer. Any questions about that? All right. These are goals that we track. Again, they're outside of our strategic plan, outside of any accountability framework. By October 2025, our enrollment was going to be 315. Last year, we hit 325. You will see that the middle school is becoming larger year over year. Last year, our enrollment for the high school, our goal was to get to 425. We, of course, made it to 439 last year. We're smaller at the high school this year, and we're okay with that. We're at about 415, 418, but we're up in the middle school at about 345. Okay. And then our suspension rates, our goal, is for them to not exceed 10%. Last year, we saw an uptick in our suspension rates, but from a programmatic standpoint, it was necessary. We dealt with, a lot of, behavioral infractions connected to marijuana. And, we were going to address that very, very sternly. So, you know, we are looking to see, we have some good supports in place to include with some of our external partners where if there is an infraction that connects to marijuana use, marijuana possession, or any of those things, then you will actually get some rehabilitation treatment from one of our external partners. And we started doing that last year, and I found that to be a really good intervention for our kids. Because there's a reason, like we had students who were literally going to go smoke before they got to school. And we're like, dude, you smoked before school, you were, I know, like,
It's like, what stressed you out at 8 a.m.?
it's directly, like, what is even going on? You didn't wait till after school, you did this before school? I smell you. I'm not how you are, you're fine. So we'll continue to watch those numbers. And then the last piece, we always share with you all at the beginning of the year if there are any significant shifts in our population. And I think that you can see just kind of with our racial makeup that over the last couple of years, there's definitely been a population shift. We've stayed pretty consistent. We are an organization at the high school that has more boys than girls, fun times. And then we are half and half, perfectly split for our boys and girls at the middle school. You can see the changes in the shifts in our African American and Latino populations over the years. And then we're pretty consistent in terms of the percentage of our students that are English learners. We saw a small uptick at the high school this year, and pretty consistent in terms of the percentage of our students who have an IEP. So we don't anticipate any weird shifts with funding there like we saw last year. Okay. Any questions about that? All right. So we're gonna come out of this presentation, and then Bundy, we'll put up our financial slides. And let's talk about the money.
Sorry, Tracy, I do have one really quick question on this. In terms of when we're tracking, Rose talked about, we're really making sure we're tracking all the different populations for progress. We also track low income, right?
We sure do.
Yeah, and so are there any shifts there for us in terms of just the overall population?
I need to have Susan, can you make that note, mind you, for me to double back and check with her about that? Thank you for asking that question. We do, because as I think I shared with the board last year, we definitely saw performance gaps big time with our low SES population and our low SES population. So I need to find out whether or not we see shifts in terms of the percentage of our students. Always remember there are going to be issues with accuracy of that data because some of it is connected to parent self-reporting. So I'll definitely share that in the next board meeting or so.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. All righty, and we're gonna shift to the financial slides.
I locked it. Give me 1 second. I didn't,
It's not in that first,
because I made the
board drive private, so I'm trying to.
specifically don't put them up here.
oh, okay.
Well, we
Well,
can
if you
look at
can
one
look on
on
your,
iPad.
if you all will open them up on your iPad while mine gets those on there. It's the Paul monthly presentation for July 2025.
Does that get streamed?
This is,
And
well,
we
no,
always-
not our slides.
We're not sharing the screen.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
thanks.
just the meeting.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So once the slides are open, if you will go to slide number 3, where you can see we are anticipating another pretty strong financial year. Right now, you'll see we have a pretty significant forecast in terms of our days of cash projection. The DC Public Charter School Board requires 60 days. You can see we are well ahead of that 60 days. And then we anticipate, a debt service coverage ratio of roughly 2.78%, which is well above the 1.15 required by our covenants. Our outlook, though, what you're going to see in this presentation is actually significantly stronger than what the current forecast indicates. We are always very conservative under the guidance of our finance committee in terms of our budgeting. And so there is money that we knew that we were set to receive because the mayor's budget was passed. However, we had not received word in terms of how much that money was going to be. And so all of the charters this year got the teacher block grant. When we first found out about getting that grant, we thought that it was gonna be roughly $250 per student based on our certified enrollment from last year. We've since learned and received word from OSSI that it's actually closer to $650 per student based on our enrollment from last year, which was 767 students, so it's roughly 490K that we did not include in our budget, that we now get to include in our budget. So in a pretty solid place financially, even beyond what you'll see in this presentation. On the next slide, you'll see just our key performance indicators, and we talked about those. The next slide talks about our forecast and our overview. And so again, the revenue is already ahead, roughly $163,000. That does not account to the roughly $500,000 that we're anticipating adding to the financials because of the block grant information we've received. Our expenses are higher right now than what we budgeted because we did add both an additional counselor to do some work in the high school, and actually for the first time, we have a second counselor who's servicing our middle school students, as you all are seeing that our middle school is growing. And then we also hired an additional L teacher because our students needed it. If you keep going, you can see what our net income and our cash flow adjustments are, and then the overall change in cash. But again, this is based on the budget that was submitted and approved. It does not include the additional revenue that we anticipate receiving. Our cash forecast, you can see is again, we're forecasting to end the school year with a very strong cash balance. I've been doing some work with Eagle Bank and the finance committee to work the ways that we can better leverage that cash for our organization. It's good that it's there, but also just kind of thinking about what are some ways that we can use it to better leverage and position, ourselves. And some of that is going to come with a pretty significant project that we're undertaking this year, is to have a thorough evaluation of our physical plant so that we can start to make some financial investments into the overall building. But we want to do that in tandem with taking a look at our next lease, which comes up, I want to say in like about 7 years. So there are a couple of moving parts there. We want to make some big investments, but we also want to start the process of thinking about our pending lease that's coming up for us to renew. I'm not sure exactly how many years. Is that what you're gonna ask him?
No, I was gonna ask, like, you said pending lease in my head.
Not pending, but
Like we might switch locations, like.
No.
I was like-
No.
I was like,
We have to re-sign it. I just wanna make sure that when that time comes, that they don't try to renegotiate terms.
Okay.
Right. So we have good.
Which is very favorable.
Yeah.
50,000 a year
That's right.
for this building.
Yeah.
That seems right.
It sounds like you
Right,
might have to.
right.
Okay.
What you saying, that seems perfectly appropriate.
No comment.
It's for the kids. And here you can see our investments are doing really well. They did well last year as well. And so, you know, for the last, over the course of the last month, you know, we saw about 40K in interest earned on our common fund investments. And then, as you all are aware, we have an ICS account where our operating dollars sit, and then also we have savings and ICS savings. So we have done some transferring so that we can trigger the higher interest rate in our savings account. But we also continue to gain, and this is, you know, not subject to the ebbs and flows of the market. These are fixed rates that we're earning on. And you can see that we're budgeted to earn, you know, close to $500,000 this year just in interest, which is good for the organization.
And part of that, we've got zero.
Right, nothing. Our money was
Just sitting.
sitting in accounts where it was not earning interest. I'm like, why is this here?
Millions of dollars, no interest.
No interest. To almost $500,000 a year. That's a lot. It's like 5 people. Yeah, it's like 5 classroom teachers just on interest. So that's significant. And, the financial audit is underway. Hooray. The field work for the audit has already started. I'm already getting emails of stuff needing to be uploaded. Cunningham and her department and ed ops are working in tandem to make sure that all of this is done, and the deadline for completion is December 10th, but we should be done by the end of September. Still using the same auditors, JM and we anticipate a strong audit with no findings.
I don't think we've ever had findings.
Okay, that's no pressure there.
No, I'm just saying, no, I'm saying that we have been, we run, I'm saying that not to
Yeah.
put pressure on, I don't mean that at all. I was saying that for the rest of the board who may not be aware that we have always run a very clean financial organization. Like, there's never been anything, to answer for. We've
Yeah.
literally never had any findings that in the time I've been involved, no, you go back a lot further than I do in terms of finance committee, because I only joined, you know, a couple years ago, but, there was in there, so you might know it differently, but the time I was on there, and when I was chair, it was never findings. So I just think that's kudos to the organization, but it's something for people to know about, because that's not true of every organization,
right.
right? A
It's
lot of
not.
organizations, you do have findings, but we've always been, you know, by the book, and therefore we can answer anything, and we've got the documentation, and,
Always, yeah.
yeah, so I
Yeah,
think
it feels good to be in compliance, you know, like compliance is good. It's
Yeah.
like there are enough things to worry about. Like you gotta worry about student achievement, but you don't want to worry about student achievement and whether or not your books are not in order at the same time. Like that's too much. So yeah, we feel good about the way that we run our finances, from our finance committee to ed ops. We have good point people on ed ops. You know, like they can never change out our people or else we'll have an issue with them. And then, you know, we have a good small finance team within the organization. So that makes things easy. Yeah. And I think this is just the annotated financials and the very accountant-esque slides. Those are for Terry and Sterling. The ones for me are the ones with the colors on it. These are just numbers. Okay. And that's it. That's my full report.
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
On the annotated financials.
Yeah.
These revenue expenses, what are those as far as financial status?
So the revenue part, those are all of the sources of revenue that are coming into the organization. Okay? Also our per pupil funding, that's our our uniform per pupil funding allocation. Any other local revenue that we're receiving, the federal revenue that we receive, you'll see the forecast and then you'll see the budget. Any private grants and donations, and then earned fees, is about the interest that we accrue.
No, I guess the significance of it says behind. It says net income, like what significance?
So
Are you
that-
talking about the notes over to the right?
Yeah.
So our revenue, if you go back, this slide corresponds to this slide right here. That's why I said the pictures. So if you go back up, this is the one that I like right here. So we forecasted in terms of revenue that we would have in our budget, we budgeted for, $26.6 million in terms of total revenue. But our forecast is actually 26.8 million, so there's a variance of roughly $163,000, so that's where you see that we're ahead. And that's because of higher than anticipated E-rate funding and 8th grade dues and a STEM grant that we received. So when we did the budget, we thought that we would only get 26.6 million, but based on some things that we've learned and some things that we've received, the forecast is been updated and we're actually ahead in terms of revenue. This number, Jennifer, is gonna get even larger based on what I just talked about with the teacher block grant. So next time you see it, it may be like $500,000 there. The next piece where expenses, we see expenses, we budgeted for $26.6 million in expenses. However, when we look at the forecast, even though we haven't spent all that money, we're forecasting that we're actually going to spend 26.8 million. And that's because we added an additional counselor and an L teacher. So when you see the terminology that says behind, that's what that means. And again, this slide here is just a pictorial representation of this slide here.
That's the fine print.
This is the fine print, yeah. These are all the numbers broken out,
And all the subcategories that make it up.
yeah.
And I would just say as, you know, in terms of, from a finance committee perspective, what they would be looking at is not necessarily what we're seeing right now, which is month to month, but overall, where are we gonna end up, which is why we always start with that third slide, which is the metrics are days of cash on hand, our debt to what you call it ratio.
And service coverage
Debt
ratio.
service coverage ratio. Those are the two main things in terms of, again, back to compliance. So we have to make sure that we're gonna be all right. And then kind of overall, as an organization, we wanna make sure we're not spending more than we're gonna have for the whole year. And of course, that's where we have extra money
Yeah.
that we have in the past that sometimes called on. But we're not having to do that at this point because we're projecting for the entire year.
That's right,
We'll still come out even,
yeah,
or actually possibly ahead like we did last year.
that's right. Right now, we're projecting that we'll come out ahead, but the reality of it is that we don't need to do that. We need to like spend our money. Yeah,
During the course of the year.
yeah,
But there's also another way to look at it. If you look at your household income, you have your paycheck coming in, you're paying your bills, and month to month, this is kind of like a report card. But if you need to spend more that particular month, it really depends on how much money you get in the bank.
yeah,
If you're having saved to them, $21 million.
yeah.
240,000 is 0.1%.
Yeah.
Mathematician, but it's. Okay.
Yeah. Then it was like, I'll take that 200 for me too, girl.
Just because I know that we're taking a little more time than we normally do. And I appreciate seeing you all, but I assume that other people we all have things to do with our evening. There are two, the first thing that we have that is in closeout business. The board map for the year has been shared. It was shared at the end of last year for recommendations. It was shared at the beginning of this year again, and I asked in the last meeting if anybody had any recommended changes and have not received them. We're gonna move forward and assume that the map works for everyone, because I haven't received any changes. So as it is entered into the record, there are no changes. As I mentioned, it doesn't vary that much from our previous year's map, other than we removed one of our goals that we had around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we changed that to one that was looking at more of implementing the strategic plan that was recreated at the end of last year.
I don't want to delay us, but I have just two really quick things. They're not, I mean, yes to everything you said.
Okay,
One is the date at the very top. I think you updated it. It's not 24.
it was a 24, okay, then
That's what like was the original.
it was the original one, and I have, so what
Yeah.
I will do that. I think, and I remember doing it when I sent it, I saw it. It's, in Google Docs, sometimes it doesn't show you what's in the frame, in the format.
Yeah.
That was like. a
Anyway,
header.
just
I'll go back and
to
change that.
avoid
Thank
confusion. And then I just did have a question. I was assuming that we're monitoring the implementation of the fifth grade just because it's our newest grade and relatively new, and not because there are concerns, or are there actually concerns?
There are no, not because there are concerns, because I don't think, because it is new and we are still inculcating that into our practices. It didn't make sense because it was a goal that was introduced last year to eliminate it this year to me. And nobody gave me the feedback that they thought that it
No,
would
I mean,
change
to
it,
me, because it felt like from the report that we got that it's still,
evolve.
it's, yeah, evolving, probably a good word, that we don't feel so totally solid on it in terms of.
It's,
where we're going.
the programming I feel great about, it's the recruitment and enrollment.
Right, that's the part and maybe we should just be clear with ourselves about that. I don't know if we necessarily need to change
So-
or whatever, but it really isn't the programming, it's
No.
really just the numbers.
It's the number.
Straight numbers. Okay.
I can, I'm gonna ask a question just because I know my memory. Vanya, are you recording the meeting so that if I looked at the notes from this one, I could make a reminder to myself? Okay, then I will do those two updates because that does make sense to me. Just that reframing, and then the date, and I will resend that to Maya.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions before we move on to other updates? Okay. There are two reports. One I will give from executive committee, and then I will yield to Jen to do for governance, updating. A couple of things have happened in terms of relating to executive board. Dr. White's evaluation from last year was done. The executive committee met and made a decision related to Dr. White's performance bonus for this year. There was one other thing that I am for.
In my contract.
Oh, yes, and we
Yes.
renewed Dr. White's contract. I was like, there's something else. Yes, it's September, okay, at least it still happened at the beginning of the year, and those are things that have already taken place. I will yield to Jen to update, because there are a few governance updates.
Yes, thank you. So Erin and I met over the summer and we met early this week. And she created this really cute chart that's in the governance committee folder, you can take a look. Laying out our goals for the year. And those three goals are to ensure board procedures are updated for succession plans for the school and for the board, leadership and the CEO evaluation. So that includes finalizing the CEO succession plan and then developing the CEO evaluation plan, which we are working with Canva already, who's taking the lead on that, develop templates, and we just want to document the process so that those who come behind us or, just report currently can have a look at that and see what that looks like and what went into that process. The second goal is to ensure procedures are in place for recruitment and onboarding of new board members. We took the orientation guide that was previously used, and we're going through it right now, and we'll provide it to the board for your feedback to see what you all think. Someone who's coming onto the board, what would they immediately need, and then what should they just have access to and know where things are in order to acclimate them to board service and inspiring leadership. It also includes confirming some recruitment blurbs for parent trustees as well as our board trustees. And then Erin took a hand at drafting the first, or drafting a revised version of the trustee agreement. And so we'll definitely be leaning on our newest board member, Lori, to get her feedback on what else needs to be included, and what would help someone coming in to get settled. And we'll be reviewing the recruitment process overall. And then last, just ensuring we have a full board in compliance with the bylaws. So just doing that annual review, and we're just keeping that up.
And there are three terms that are. Oh, for renewal that are up.
Two for this month, sorry,
Yes.
two for this month and year in November.
Yes, no, actually we have three. Brittany Wood.
No, Brittany, sorry,
Oh,
we did already, she's
okay.
on the roster, but remember, we actually voted Brittany in, the June meeting because her daughter was graduating, and so we
Okay.
voted, we renewed her term early. And so her term started in the June meeting, right, Manya?
I mean, I thought we switched her role and Her term still would be.
Oh, her term would be up. Okay, so that's my misunderstanding. I apologize.
But she has agreed
Get it
to
straight.
continue on the board. So we can, let's.
Which is the critical part.
Yeah, we can confirm that outside the meeting. We didn't want to pressure you in the meeting and you just let us know what.
She already reports.
Okay.
I was like, that was a statement.
Give her an hour.
Okay, but Ms. Winston as well, and then,
This was the only person that is not confirmed.
okay, and then Kemba's up in November, but she has confirmed,
And Dr. Malachi's term is up this month also, right? Or
And
not,
she has confirmed.
Yeah, so, yes, that is, sure.
Like just because I'll lose it, like as far as like someone that's coming on, like particularly like if they come from like not a background of education, I think like an ABC of Paul or ABC of the board, so people know what acronyms like mean.
And we have a glossary,
Especially
so-
Yeah, the glossary is actually in that orientation guide.
I know.
And, you know, just to shout out to whoever organizes the website, there's so many resources on there, so we're thinking about kind of doing maybe something like a checklist where folks can click links to where things are and, be able to use what's there, but there's so much there, so shout out to them, whatever that may be.
Yep, yep.
I will share that with you.
Let's see.
Oh, unless there's more questions.
No, and so we will begin with Miss, and I'm asking the question now because in my head, it's not, it's the same order, we ask motion, vote. I just wanted to make sure in my head.
Roberts is still Roberts.
Right, I just need to confirm.
Yeah, are we doing the vote today?
We, for,
Well,
because
we can't do it today because we're not meeting in October, so we can
Right.
since they did confirm.
yeah, and then
I
Ms.
mean-
Winston will do in November.
You and Ms. Winston would then be in November.
And so since we'll go in, or starting with the farthest away, we'll start with Ms. Wood. Can I ask for a motion from the floor for Ms. Wood to continue her term for 3 years, beginning in with the 25-26 school year?
So moved.
Thank you, Sterling. Second, thank you, Shamira, and I will go starting reverse order with Jen.
Yes.
Thank you, Sterling.
Yes.
Yes.
Erin, I'm a yes.
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 I'm being weird. I'm assuming. you're yes. Okay, and so we will move on to Dr. Malachi's term for a motion from the floor. Thank you, Sally, and thank you, Sterling. And so I will start with Ms. Wood.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we have so Dr. Malachi will continue her 3-year term, beginning with the 25-26 school year.
Quick question.
Absolutely.
My child graduates in 2 years. Hopefully I won't be here for her for 3 years, but does that mean I get to be here?
You can, we would just transition to like a parent, like an Ametreus.
Okay.
Well, it's like what
Yeah,
happened with
Ms.
Ms.
Wood.
Wood. So we still need to have parent trustees. Now, at this point, we still have 2 parent trustees. Bylaws require us to have 2 parent trustees. And so you and Ms. Wood are Ms. Wood, wherever her name tag is her, our parent, are the official parent trustees. But, Ms. Wood wanted to stay on, and so she became I'm sorry, Ms. Winston. So Ms. Wood is now a regular trustee, if you will, there's not another name for it, right? And Kemba was never a parent trustee per se, she wasn't designated as that. So originally, I think when they made the bylaws, they wanted to make sure there were at least 2 parents represented. But one of the decisions that Kemba and I made as chair, when we were chair and co-chair, was we wanted to try to recruit our board more from the parent community, which is the way a lot of, private schools that have their own individual boards do it, because obviously there are advantages to that, while there are also advantages to having expertise outside of it, right? So it's nice to have a balance, but we felt that having that designated, only to parents versus you could have parents, but you just gotta make sure they're at least 2. So the bylaws say at least 2, and then anybody else is a trustee who happens to also be a parent, or maybe is an educator, or maybe is.
So you
a
have
lawyer
to
or
have
whatever.
2, I guess, active parents of
Of
children
current
who are
students, who are
actively
current students, that's
Got it.
right. And then beyond that, they can be parents of alumni or whatever other, but they can also be parents. We can also have parents of current students, like Kemba is a parent of a current
Yeah.
student, but she's not designated as one of the parent trustees. So that's not confusing, but, and so that's when we, at the end of, when at the graduation, basically Brittany was no longer qualified, no longer eligible to be the parent trustee, but she wanted to stay on, and that would be the same thing in 2 years for you. Does that make sense?
And parent trustees, your term ends once your child leaves.
That's right. So, thank you, that's easier. way to say
Like
it.
the month you graduate or the end of whatever your
At the
term
end of the
is?
term.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's early graduation, I don't know. I would assume that that would also coincide with the end of, the parent term.
Okay.
There's no early graduation for her.
You're not letting her go?
She can go. She won't go, but if you wanna go early, that's,
Oh, on the date, that he or she no longer has a child, so on the
On the
date.
date.
Yeah.
Good, at graduation.
So that makes
Bam.
sense.
then it's over.
Any other questions on term for this year? Okay. Any other questions about anything else we've covered? Okay. We do not meet in October, unless I will, with the caveat, we have 2 meetings a year that we traditionally do not have. Unless there is an issue, October is one of those places where we are not scheduled to meet. So we will see each other again in November. It is November 18th.
But we do have executive and SPC,
That's what I'm saying.
but mine is gonna change the date because they both fall on Indigenous Peoples' Day. So we'll see whether or not you all can do that on that Tuesday.
That makes sense. So it was lovely to see you all in person. I am always joyful and good information about ways that we are starting the school year in a strong step. One thing that
Food home also.
Yeah, one thing I do want to say, I know that it is not traditional to share information about people's performance evaluations, but I just want to say thank you to the executive team who participated. I want to make a public acknowledgement to Dr. White, but also to your executive team. As a HR professional, I am normally getting to do processes like these when things are going tragically wrong and when people hate each other and you're doing evaluations for how people to recover. This was one of the most delightful experiences for people who truly enjoy working together and respect each other as a team and their strengths. And so I just want to speak to, and as a parent thinking about how that then has ripples out into the community and impacts your child. And so I just want to say that, like, just remarking on how remarkable that is, that even in giving criticism, people were effusive. And it came from, and there were a lot of explanations because your team is a little loquacious.
A little.
I'm being kind. I just want to reflect that the length of your review was less than the notes that I took from any of those conversations. So tried to make it concise, but just the level of respect that they have for you and each other is really quite special. So as a parent, I want to say that I appreciate that that is an environment my child gets to come and learn, but also as a professional, I want to give you kudos for creating that environment for yourself, but also for your team, because it is really
It's a great team. It's a great environment to be able to work in. Yeah, feels very safe.
and that every person said.
Yeah.
Wow. Quite remarkable.
Thank you.
And I'm teary, and so
You better adjourn really quick.
So on that note, I'd like to thank you all for coming. We're gonna this. I'll see you all in November.
Manya has swag bags back there for everyone. You can pick a bag. It had, there's a t-shirt inside it, so pick a bag that aligns with your t-shirt.
My first time I had.
Just because it's
So I don't have to.
Donations by the
Uh-huh.
just get together and find the first one over.
I was like,
But you're right. Yeah, but you can still do the Amazon donations.
Like on, like whatever gift.
Yeah, like around
Giving of like the gift, my college calls it Give Love Day, and I was about to.
Like, we have so much. Public charter school.
We didn't last year.
I haven't heard it mentioned.
Yeah, so I don't think we did it last year. I didn't think the Giving Tuesday, we didn't do it last year.
Cindy, shoot me an email and you let me know the day that you can come in. I don't remember the culture. But there was our borrow. Yeah, we have a borrow bag, that, you know, the kids can pull stuff.
Okay,
post
good.
in front.
We need to have it at one house. I'm also in their borrow bag.
Yeah.
I was talking to. Okay.
Monday. Really always.
Good luck. Good grades. All those ones. Yeah, let's see if I can find some tutoring on, please. Will you shoot me an email? Yeah, let's see if I can talk, I'll talk to the senior day coordinator and see whether I can get our. Yeah. I love that.
You know you don't go there anymore, right? You didn't wanna go when you were supposed to, but you're always there now.
I know, they all wanna come out, but that's because they wanna come up here and not, and wear their regular street clothes, and I feel like they have.
She's literally here like every, because her classes are during the day, so. Because she quit sports, the coach was like, you already know the team.
Definitely, definitely remind me that I'm talking about
No, because I thought I was gonna take her earlier and then try to say, but her being here now is so bad.
Yeah.
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 So she still lives down the street, so I actually moved, she still stays down the street also.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
No problem.
Is she gonna,
You know, it's not very-
dorms?
They do, but I'm not paying
I was gonna say, well,
15
I've seen
grand
that
for
money.
you to go down the street.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're right.
Appreciate
It's so cute.
It is.
Listen, that's a good bottle. That's my gym bottle.
Is it?
Yes, cause
Oh,
that
yes,
thing,
I got a t-shirt now.
it's not a Stanley, but it might be a Contigo.
That's all right.
Brianna probably said.
And then
I'm giving it that now.
get it back for her, but she ain't gonna wear it.
Are there, nobody?
Yeah, I got some swag. You know.
I will see you all later.
Yeah.
Well, you know, thank you so much. I'll see you later.
You know yet the date and
Mine is gonna put a date together for Express to sit down and like start to plan this out. Because, you know, one of the things that the kids said in the reflection, is they want something more fun. And I'm gonna still do my fun for them too. That is not, you're welcome.
Thank you.
You did I pack the to-go box? Okay.
But it's not actually more fun that they want to be more engaging, they don't know
Yes.
that word.
That's right.
And the best attendance policy is good instruction, right? But the best instruction
Engaging.
is something where they're gonna be doing something really different.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that's what it takes to really do the kind of international work, so that's where it can get really exciting. I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
Get really
And
exciting.
we're ready for it. This world is so scary. My director of HR and her husband were down to Cookville for her birthday last week. They arrested her husband off of the jet bridge, mistaking him because of some tattoos that he has. This is the African American guy from Philly. They thought he was a Venezuelan man. They incarcerated him for 5 days.
Oh my God. Well, that would have been
Yeah. Very scary. So it's like this world is scary, and I finally feel like our kids are, you know, we started the first couple of weeks. Are we off of the Wi-Fi, Manya? Did you stop streaming?